Chapter. Expected approach time 3-4, approach button 17. The altimeter 2997.
Hey there everyone, Prickly Hedgehog here. Welcome back to the DCS Situation Report regarding Eagle Dynamics' latest newsletter for October 14th. This week, ED have announced the impending update to the core game engine. This will be known as Edge 2.8, and it will bring us an improved iteration of the sim environment, the core environment that is, with a big focus on dynamic weather. That's right, clouds, dynamic weather, things are going to move around. So let's unpack that information, and of course the announcement here of a brand new warbird from Octopus G. This is the Russian designed and built LA-7. We'll start with clouds, of course, because, well, why not? It's a pretty exciting announcement from ED, and they're telling us here that after extensive testing of new moving clouds, that's right, dynamic weather means moving clouds, there will be effects like rainbows, and they are ready to update DCS World weather in the upcoming 2.8 version. The weather system will include optimization for VR, and they are confident that this will result in a more stable and smooth experience. Now, remember when Edge 2.7 was announced, what was it, a year or so ago, 2 years ago? Was it? Gosh, I'm losing track of time. I think it was about a year ago that we had the clouds being introduced to DCS World for the first time, which really was amazing. And of course, we're talking static clouds. Some VR users felt, or noted at least, that the experience was not quite optimized for them. There were things like jittering and other subsidiary issues going on that were a detraction from what a lot of us interfacing with a 2D screen were experiencing. And so that portion of the community were not happy, many of them, with the initial release. Now, good news was ED were able to rectify that issue and allow VR users to experience what the rest of us were experiencing, and that is the pleasure of flying through the amazing cloud effects that ED provided in that major update, which also saw a great improvement in shadows and lighting and other subsidiary effects of an improved visual experience for DCS World, which was awesome. So, unsurprisingly, ED explained that this will be a large update to DCS World, and you will be able to experience what they call new atmospheric effects like rainbows and ice halos. The ice halo effect settings have been added to the mission editor weather tab, and clouds will now move according to wind direction and speed. The rain effect has also been enhanced, and there have been fixes to rear volumetric cloud artifacts, which is really cool. Now, adjustments have also been made to the tone mapping processes, they say, and the exposure controls. They're now recommending that a gamma setting of 2.2 is optimal for this new update. Flat shadows on the MFDs and cockpit shading have also been improved. Now, I am running currently, I think, a gamma of around about 1.7 to 1.8. That's what I prefer, to give it a little bit more shadow effect, a little bit more mood lighting, if you like. And I'm using an Asus 3080 RTX card, and this works really nicely for me. So, now, ED's new recommendation likely means, therefore, there has been a significant overhaul of the current lighting effects, particularly involving shadows, which I think is interesting. Now, this reference, for example, to the cockpit shadows on the MFDs being improved, signals clearly some interesting work that's gone on to the gamma functions in the game. Now, you would have seen probably a short that ED released of some of these weather effects, these moving fronts. Some of us in the Air Warfare group noticed there was no signal by ED of what this means for performance enhancements, or certainly performance reductions, such as FPS rates, which are pretty vital, obviously, for video gaming, and dips in performances are particularly irritating in high-detailed games like this. So that short, showcasing the weather moving, really didn't offer us any FPS counters or performance parameters in order to garner a benchmark clue as to what's going on there. And that is really a big question with regards to this update. And it's important to note that most people did not suffer major performance degradations pertaining to the static clouds in the 2.7 update, And many of us were worried about that, obviously the VR issue being a separate thing. Now, the focus on the gamma and shadows again references some interesting things for me, and I believe that shadows are some of the biggest PC performance impact parameters, again depending on your particular system for DCS World. We recall people struggling initially to run the Marianas Islands map smoothly when it first came out, and that was because of some very complicated detailed vegetation and shadow effects associated with that. Now, ED was able to rectify some of those issues admittedly, but there's no question that, as Juice recently pointed out in a video on hardware, now is the time to upgrade your PC as these 3 series graphics cards drop in price significantly. Certainly 3080s, standard 3080s, the non-TIs, a lot more affordable now than what they were certainly 12 months ago, but even 6 months ago. And this is obviously going to be a good time to do that, to bump up your DCS experience, rather than relying exclusively on promises by ED to introduce Vulkan API, which we'll come to in just a sec. The 2.7 upgrade, in my opinion, even with the static clouds, was one of the best environmental upgrades that DCS was provided in more recent times. I hope, given the reference to the big update that 2.8 will be, that this will massively enhance our immersive experiences for combat flight simulation and even just flying in general without the combat. This is really exciting. It still raises a lot of questions as to whether or not these new clouds are going to be associated with line of sight issues. Say, for example, the new AI BFM thing that we're going to get will, moving into clouds, prevent the AI from seeing us. That was something that ED was working on. So there's a lot of questions that I have. So what I'm looking for with this new update are things like the need for divert airfields in case of bad weather at home base, or changes in weather over the target areas requiring resolutions for those interested in really creating missions that cater for weather-based realism. It will, of course, be of great benefit for campaign developers to add more dynamic atmospheres to their mission sets, or, as mentioned, additional challenges and obstacles for pilots to overcome. Not everyone will appreciate that, and not everyone will want to fly a 2-hour mission only to have the target obscured by clouds and things like that, or a storm front that's come through. So these are obviously issues that have to be worked around in the real world. Potentially bad weather may even cancel some flights. But, again, this is a realism factor that many of us enjoy about DCS in general, and will be a great enhancer for those of us looking for that kind of experience in the game. So regardless of the guise that it comes in, I think this will greatly, as you can tell, enhance our immersion and realism in our combat flying, and, as mentioned, our general flight experiences as well, which are really exciting in an aircraft that have good visibility in the cockpits, that you can look around, fly through the clouds. It's an exciting thing to do, and that's one of the reasons I love DCS World, is because of the realism associated with flight, because of the ability to see out of the cockpit and enjoy, the environment that we fly in, which is really cool. Now, from the brief, it seems that all of this will be able to be tinkered with for mission making in the mission editors, and at this time there's no mention of other real-life or live weather features, such as those that are referenced in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, where there is live weather and stuff like that, and there's a link, obviously, to what's going on in the real world. Now, that would require, I suspect, some sort of partnership with a data company, or some sort of interface that gives the game access to that information. And I honestly don't see the benefit for campaigns or missions. As interesting as the technology is, we'll have to wait and see what the full list of changes brings and how the update interacts with our individual setups and things. But I'm really overall looking forward to this update and what it might mean for the game. So we'll see. Now, side note, of course, it's worth noting too that there was no reference here at this time to Vulkan API that we've been asking for a long, long time. Obviously, we're still waiting for a dynamic campaign on that basis as well, but we don't have any information that ED has, bringing that portion into the game here. We do know, pretty reliably informed, that ED have been successfully testing Vulkan. This will be a significant injection of updates for the game, so stay tuned. I think, I'm presuming actually it could be as early as this month, but we'll have to wait and see if it's a Q4 update. There's a lot going on in the game, and this kind of update is really where you get a good benchmark for major improvements in the game. And I'm, again, really excited about it. So let me know what you think in the comments section below, and how you feel about it.
Let's do it again. We'll check left 9270.
Left 9270.
Go. Nice.
Now, not to be overshadowed in this week's news, overshadowed, is the revelation of yet another aircraft module for DCS World, and that is the Lavochkin LA-7, made by Octopus G. Now, this was an improvement over its predecessor, actually, the LA-5, and saw action towards the end of the Second World War. It was introduced in late 1944 for the Red Army Air Force. It was fitted with a 14-cylinder radial engine, which was actually based on a licensed American Wright Cyclone engine, R180, and they named it the ASH-82, which produced anywhere up to around about 1,800 horsepower and was relatively easy to maintain, which was pretty critical in the harsh Russian winters, of course, which both Napoleon and later Hitler, obviously, struggled with when it came to logistics and equipment and fighting in that hostile environment. I actually read a pretty grim story of French soldiers cutting off pieces of horses' hides for food as they retreated from Russia, Napoleon's forces, that is, and it was just because of the bitter cold, and the horses didn't actually feel those slices of meat being cut off their hind quarters until they got to warmer climes. Pretty grim story, but I digress. So harsh environment, obviously, in parts of Russia. Another interesting design feature of this aircraft is that despite the latter war design, the airframe, like the fabulous British design Mosquito, the LA-7 was actually made of wood, which is in contrast for the preference of the period for using aluminum or aluminium, depending on which part of the world you hail from. That obviously dominated aircraft design during that period, as mentioned. So despite this, the aircraft was renowned for its ruggedness and its maneuverability, combined with formidable armament, including variations that generally carried two 20mm cannons. It could carry up to 3 cannons, each with around about 200 rounds. Not listed in the newsletter, the aircraft apparently had 4 hardpoints as well, making it capable of carrying some air-to-ground weapons such as rockets and bombs. It excelled at low and mid-range altitudes, and that made it a great dogfighter as well. It had a top speed of around about 660 kilometers an hour at 6,000 meters, and a service ceiling of just over 34,000 feet. So quite a capable aircraft and a very popular one amongst its pilots. So it is a tail dragger with retractable gear, so those are always challenging to maneuver on the ground especially. Expect a pretty capable airframe, like I said, and a useful alternative addition to some of the heavy hitters in the Warbirds genre as a fighter. Let me know what you think and whether it's a useful addition to the game. So that really rounds out this week's newsletter from ED, and of course it raises, as I said, a lot of questions about what Edge 2.8 is going to bring to the core engine. I'm, as I said, pretty excited about it, and we'll have to wait and see how it's going to interact with our hardware, what it's going to be like to work around these new weather fronts, and I'm excited to see that, as I said, this latest iteration of the game coming to DCS World hopefully fairly soon. That's the promise, so stay tuned for more information on that. Really, not too much more going on worthy of reporting. There are bits and pieces going on, and I'll find time to bring a more comprehensive update on some of that stuff. I've had some requests to kind of overview what's being worked on. It's a good idea. Obviously, more snippets from Razbam on the F-15E and the radar. It's a pretty potent platform, so these snippets obviously are pretty exciting to see, and hopefully we get some more concrete news on when that aircraft is going to be released, as it is a huge fan favorite and probably the #1 aircraft anticipated right now for hopefully a Q4 release. And then hot on the heels of that, or around about the same time, will be the Phantom F4 if everything goes according to plan, and Heatblow haven't, as far as I can tell, haven't revealed anything new in terms of news. So yeah, we've got some things going on in the community right now that are really, really exciting as we round out the end of the year. So stay tuned for more information as it comes to hand. As I said, this is Prickly Hedgehog out for another DCS Sit Rep. We'll see you next time. Take it easy.
Roger. Ready.
I'm going to drag you guys in Discord down to your discrete channels.